Welcome everybody to the Action Cluster Meeting Sustainable Urban Mobility. My name is Lutz Heuser. I'm the Action Cluster lead. And I welcome you on the Action Cluster meeting today as part of the Smart City Marketplace Forum. I hope you had an enjoyable 1.5 days so far. And so today in the afternoon, we will focus on the community around the Action Cluster. I'd be happy to have Anna with me today. She will take care of the minutes. Hi, Anna. And she will also be part of the...
Hello, everyone.
Hi, thank you, Anna. I hope you had a chance to look at the agenda, which I should get in. The system works. So that's the agenda that we have jointly prepared for you. After the welcome and introduction of today, I will hand over to Anna and Judith to present the latest news from the Smart City Marketplace so that we all are on the same page. I will then provide you with an update on what has happened in the last couple of months, especially in the context of the matchmaking event, very brief. And then we will have a couple of reports. I'm very happy to have them joining us. Gary will talk about the EV City Casebook initiative of Urban Foresight as part of EV for SCC. And Olaf Bender will talk about a particular project that was initiated in the context of EV for SCC, namely Hello. And at the remaining part, we would ask you to become active with us in a potential new initiative that we would like to share with you. And I will present to you what has happened, starting with the matchmaking event, and then open the floor to all of you for participating in this. And we all should be able to conclude then at 4 o'clock in time, hopefully. So thanks, everybody. And without further notes, I'd like to hand over to Anna and Judith to present the update of the Smart City Marketplace.
Yes, thank you, Lutz. Well, first of all, hi, everybody. Really great to see you all. And also highly welcome from you're also highly welcome from the side of the Smart Cities Marketplace, where Anna and I are both in the support team. It has been a very, very difficult year, I think, for many people because of the COVID-19 crisis. And it was also, I think, quite a difficult and challenging year for the action clusters, because before we were used to a rhythm of having 2 times per year an action cluster meeting where we would meet and exchange and have a lot of ideas. And now suddenly this rhythm was disrupted, and we had to go to online meetings, which was of course a good alternative, but not gives you the energy usually that you have when you are in the room with people. So we hope that this will change soon, and maybe in fall that it will already be possible to have the first physical meetings again from the side of the Smart Cities Marketplace. Everything also depending upon the policies of the European Commission, because sometimes the people working for the European Commission are not allowed to travel, and that makes it then also a bit difficult for us to organize something where we want them to be present. So today we are very happy to have Amalia here from side of European Commission. So welcome to Amalia. Really great to have you here, and we hope that you will enjoy the meeting. And a couple of yes, you're welcome. Couple of practical things that I would like to share are first of all, the website has migrated to the EU domain, and that had consequences for a lot of things, because we have to to comply with all the rules that are applicable to EU websites. And that also has a lot of consequences for the action clusters. For example, how to get a member, how to become a member, where to find the information. And this is something that we have been working on, and that is still not fully done, but that we hope that will be better and better in future. Because actually this was the first ever website I've understood that migrated from outside the EU to inside the EU. And we had to make a couple of changes. So there's now a small form on the website. Everybody who is interested to become a member can go to the website, and they will see a small form. And you can click on the action cluster that you would like to be part of. And also we have now a general email address. I think it explains itself. It's community@eu-smartcities.eu, where you can send general questions about the marketplace, about the community, and about action clusters. So people can go there. I also would like to mention briefly that it was already mentioned during the wrap-up. This morning we had a couple of new master classes we have planned. This has been a big success. Very nice master classes together with Covenant of Mayors. But for this action cluster, it might also be interesting. There are also master classes in the pipeline together with the Civitas community. And I think that could be very interesting. So what we do in these master classes is to develop project proposals together with the participants to a good maturity level, so they might be interesting for private investors. So these project proposals then can be as part of the matchmaking, can be linked to specific investors that might be interested to finance them. So this is something also, I think, for you, Lutz, that's very interesting to see. Maybe there are other ways to work together on these master classes with the Civitas. So, for example, on guest speakers, etc. So I think it would be good to follow that process. Then I would like to say that we have a couple of upcoming events, of course. At the Urban Smart City Fair, we had a digital booth that was last week. Now we have the upcoming Covenant of Mayors Investment Forum. It will be 15 and 60 June next week, and there the Smart Cities Marketplace is also represented. And in fall we have the Nordic Edge. And I think given the pace of vaccinations, we will soon have more news about how other events are planned. Maybe Espen also can put a couple of things in the chat. I cannot fully explain everything, so I don't know what is the plan exactly for autumn. So I think that was basically it. I would also like to introduce our colleague Anna Dracutescu. Anna is the senior expert for this action cluster, so we're very happy to have her here. And Anna, maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself and your experiences with smart cities and smart mobility.
Thank you very much, Judith. Hello, everyone. Again, from my side, it's very good to be here. It's very interesting to be a senior expert in this smart cities marketplace, and this is a lovely initiative. A few words about myself. So I work for ICLEI European Secretariat. ICLEI is a global network of more than 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. We have several secretariats across the world, and we are active in more than 125 countries. ICLEI Europe, per se, provides its members in Europe and the Middle East and West Asia with a voice on the European and international stage, and acts as a platform to connect with peers and tools to drive positive environmental, economic, and social change. Within ICLEI, I lead the mobility cluster, and together with my colleagues, we accompany cities towards citizen-centered urban planning that prioritizes non-motorized transport and green mixed-use neighborhoods, and also in shaping the transition towards electric and shared mobility. Just to mention a few of the projects we have been part of. So we have worked with one of the biggest projects funded by the Horizon 2020 funding. It was called Sums Up. We led this project, and this is the project that led to the development of the second edition of the guidance for the sustainable urban mobility plans for their development and implementation. So it was one of our main projects we have been involved in. We continued with Sum Plus, which is also a project that deals with SUMP implementation and processes, and also in supporting cities on this path. We are also working with different other areas in mobility for the projects. For example, we have this project called Handshake that supports the effective uptake of the integrated cycling solutions, successfully developed in champion cities and then replicated in other frontrunner cities. We have recently won this project that aims at finalizing and testing a safer and modular three-wheel electric kick scooters for personal urban and suburban mobility. It's called DREAM. We're also part of Green Charge, which empowers cities and municipalities to make the transition to zero-emission sustainable mobility with innovative charging infrastructures for electric vehicles. So as you see, we cover a lot of aspects in cities and smart cities. This is what I do on a daily basis. And as an independent expert, coordination expert, senior expert, I have different names in this marketplace. I provide impulse to the work done in the action clusters in several ways. I'm responsible to check the roadmaps and annual work plans of the action cluster. I also try to identify potential synergies between action clusters and other initiatives, opportunities to better contribute to the overall marketplace, the Smart Cities marketplace. I'm always part of these events that we have, like the one today. So I'm also open to questions. If I can support you in any way, I'm here for you, or you can contact me on my email address, ana.dragutescu@iclei.org. So this is from my side. It's very good to meet you, and very good to be here. Thank you, Judith.
You're welcome, Anna. Lutz, maybe it's also good to briefly introduce Amalia.
Yeah, that was I'm going to do, as Amalia also open up her video. Amalia, would you like to provide a few words about yourself and what DG Move is currently doing in this context of sustainable urban mobility that we are active in here in our action cluster? Amalia, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lutz. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to share this interesting meeting with all of you. I really am on DG Move by I have been here only for a short time, for less than 3 months, and I work on the urban mobility team. I don't know if you know that we are now working hardly in the urban mobility initiative, which has been in public consultation. The roadmap has been in public consultation, and we have received more than 100 contributions, very interesting, all of them. And now we are working on the staff working document. The idea is this initiative will be adopted by the end of the year by the Commission, and we have elaborated a set of questions for citizens and stakeholders and social civil society to answer and to give input. These questions about the initiative will be published probably in the middle of June, probably in a week, and I encourage you to participate. And in this framework of the initiative, to give it to knowledge, we have organized 5 very interesting workshops next week that I encourage you highly to participate. The deadline to register is tomorrow. They have they are being very welcomed by seeing the registrations. So I can put it in the chat, the link to inform and to register. And I think it will be very interesting. It will be urban logistic, electric logistic. It will be UVAR. It will be a meeting with the Committee of Regions for Social Civil Society, with 2 interesting breakouts on active mobility and public transport. And anyway, have a look, and I hope you participate. I'm sure that it will be very interesting for all of you. And okay, that's all by my side. I don't want to retain the floor more longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amalia. Thank you for the update. And yes, please add the link to the chat so that we could have a look at it thereafter. I'd like to move on and thank you to all of you, Anna and Judith, for giving the presentation. I know, Judith, you will be busy otherwise as well. So good luck for your next meeting to come. But we like to continue now, and it's now my time to update you on the Action Cluster activities, given a short look at the list of participants. I'm not quite sure how familiar you are with the Action Cluster. You can certainly find more information on the website of the Smart City Marketplace. The Action Cluster has been inaugurated, as all of them, from the very beginning. It is one of what has historically been called a vertical action cluster, as it addresses topics around mobility, as the name already shows. Mobility here includes logistics topics as well, although I must say that in the past years of the existence of the action cluster, the logistics part was relatively small, and much effort was spent on the mobility of humans. And the way action clusters operate, as Judith mentioned, had been that we meet on a regular base, which was, of course, also affected by the COVID pandemic. And when we met, we went through a couple of topics and issues that are of relevance to this action cluster. Keep in mind that the Smart City Marketplace originated out of the European Innovation Partnership on Smart City and Communities, which itself was initiated to address the climate change goals and the issue that the European market, the European member states will have difficulties to meet these goals. And that was already uncovered some 10 years ago. And so the idea with the initiative had been to stimulate more activities towards supporting the climate change goals. Now, in the meantime, smart city by itself became a major topic, and many of us have embarked on this. Nevertheless, the action clusters remain in place, and we started to look into what is being called excuse me, lead initiatives. Lead initiatives are topics of relevance where we believe the action cluster should have a closer look at. And so I'd be happy to share with you the current initiatives that are active in the action cluster. One of the very first, if not the very first, had been the EV for SEC, electric vehicles for smart city and communities, where it's all about market uptake of full electric vehicles and charging infrastructure. And we're very happy that today we have Gary with us as well as Olaf, both working in the EV for SEC. Gary representing the leader, Urban Foresight, to give us some update about what happened over the past year or the past years. And I think we have some very exciting messages to come. We have a very exciting initiative called Urban Air Mobility, putting urban mobility into the third dimension and how to provide intermodal transport opportunities. Unfortunately, Vasilis couldn't make it today, so we will get some update some other time. You certainly have the chance to look up the website where there's some decent publication has been published there. We have the new mobility services, which is one of the longer lasting initiatives that has matured very much. Meanwhile, it's about large-scale deployment of new mobility services enabled by different kinds of mobility services. There are different working groups working there on different topics, as you could find on the website. And today we're going to talk about a potential new fourth initiative to start, which is the topic we're going to talk about later in the session. What are our plans within the action cluster? We want to share the results, especially of EV for SEC, with a broader audience, and today is a good opportunity. And we're looking forward, and I'm very happy to see what Gary and Olaf are going to present about blueprints and how to create an economy of scale. We believed altogether that more than ever, electric mobility is now there to really have a significant ramp up. We could see it more and more, but now is the time to really make sure that this market take-up takes place. That's the role of the Smart City Marketplace. It's less a researchy place. It's much more the market take-up place. And that's why we put emphasis today very much on this topic. We also think that after a couple of years running these initiatives, it's time for looking for new lead initiatives. We have the first one on the table today. We actually started off with that at the matchmaking event in April. We got some very exciting and promising feedback there. We're looking forward to your feedback today to add this and see what we can do. One of the possibilities, which is really at the step on the door, is developing a new consortium to submit a supposed lighthouse project on this topic by leveraging one of the current work programs to be published. And we have had a number of members of us are looking into the different preliminary informations about the programs, and we're very confident that very, very soon, presumably even this month, we should be able to start that work. And therefore, we will call out for participation at the end also of this session. The plans were to share the success stories as we do today at the Smart City Marketplace Forum, and also looking forward to do that at the ITS World Congress, and more to come. Nordic Edge was mentioned, and Espen also put a note in for the Civitas Forum in October. So we hope that this year, at least at the second half of the year, will be in better conditions to have more events where we could share these success stories with a broader audience. One of the constant topics in the overarching Smart City Marketplace is how could these six different action clusters collaborate even closer together. We have called out for an alignment between the action cluster on integrated infrastructure and processes, which unfortunately takes place in parallel as all the others does. So we cannot have Ram Koklo and others participating here today with us, but we are committed to look for ways to collaborate in terms of dedicated web sessions or webinars, where we were trying to understand, especially in the context of the new LEAD initiative, how that could relate to the LEAD initiative on open urban platforms and other activities in the action cluster. So hopefully throughout this and next year, we'll be able to connect these two action clusters even closer, and maybe also have joint activities that we could present. Last but not least, the core of the action cluster is being a community of the Smart City Marketplace, and it's all about matchmaking. So we are here today and the upcoming events to second the matchmaking idea. Anna has expressed that she is our senior expert in this, and it's her role and her duty to help all of us to identify these matchmaking opportunities together with the marketplace team that is supporting us in this activity. So that gives you an idea of what we're planning to do in the upcoming 18 months to come. Of course, we're happy to take on more ideas, and especially new LEAD initiatives are of high interest to us. So don't be shy if you have any idea that you would like to put up here and to propose to the action cluster. Now is a good time to do so. We're seeking for new ideas, for new LEAD initiatives. We're also looking for great examples of blueprints that we could share and help creating a market take-up. So especially this is dedicated to our fellow friends, either from the cities or from parties that are part, for example, of the Lighthouse projects, which are very relevant to us to learn the stories and the outcomes of these projects. So that's the update on the action cluster. Last year had been very difficult. We were all grounded home. So as today, all of these activities took place virtual, which is now more and more working, but it cannot replace personal relationships being built in joint events. So we're looking very much forward to seeing you again and having the ability in a joint conference room to discuss and share more of it. If there are any questions to this update, please put it into the chat. I'd be happy to answer questions as they come along. Having said that, I'd like to move on and now open the floor to our two next speakers. And we're very happy to have Gary with us today. He has been active for a while, and Urban Foresight and his colleagues have been active from the very beginning for many, many years, initiating the EV for SCC initiative way back in 2014, I believe. I really have to dig down deeply to find when it actually all started. Gary, you have some exciting news about the EV City Casebook, which we would like to learn more about. I know you had a chance to report a bit of it yesterday already, but I don't know if all of those who are here today had a chance to follow. So I'll give the floor to you. Do you need to share some slides?
Yes, please, Lutz. Yeah, I'll share my screen if that's okay.
Okay, so let me then unshare my part and then you could share yours. Go ahead. Okay. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. If you could just let me know if you see the slides, that's...
Yeah, all good.
All good, right. So yeah, thank you very much. My name is Gary McRae. I'm the head of electric mobility at Urban Foresight, and leading on the EV4 SCC work. So yeah, today I'd like to give you a brief insight into a report that we've been working on over the last couple of years and launched earlier this year, which is the EV City Casebook and Policy Guide. So I'll give you a quick introduction on what it was, an overview of the city casebook element of it, an overview of the policy part, then look at the maturity model and any questions. So really, I think the first thing is what is the city casebook, and who is it being produced in conjunction with? So like I say, Urban Foresight have been working on this for probably about 18 months now, and it's on behalf of the IEA, the EVI and HEV TCP. And it's a third in a series of books, but this one's really focusing on mass adoption of electric vehicles. So how do you turn those small scale trials or the small scale introductions into the mass adoption? So that's really what we'll go through today. And I say there's three elements really to the casebook. There is the city casebook, which showcases cities across the world and what they're doing well and how they've achieved what they have. There's the policy guide, which contains some challenges and recommendations that have kind of come out from all the research that we've done from the different cities. And then finally, there's the maturity model, which kind of allows cities to benchmark where they are and how they can maybe move on to the next level. So the casebook is a global analysis of inspiring policy pioneers and city-led innovation in electric vehicles. And like I say, it's about mass adoption. It's not about those small-scale trials anymore. And it really is set up to try and help cities benchmark, look at where they are compared to other cities, look at the lessons that they could learn from other cities, and then offer some level of guidance to those cities to how they can improve and progress. So to deliver the casebook and the policy guide, we carried out a significant amount of research. There was desk research, there was interviews, there was surveys, and there were workshops. And then a lot of the time, following an analysis and evaluation, we went back to cities and asked more questions and clarified some things. So it was a really interesting process and a challenging process because, as we all know, this market and this world that the EV world we live in moves so quickly. So it was trying to keep up to date with what everybody was doing. And then, like you say earlier, it comes out to two kind of key deliverables: the city casebook, which is real life examples, which we'll go in a minute, and then the policy guide as well. So whilst doing this, one of our kind of key challenges was trying to group cities into what they were doing well. I think the interesting for us is there was lots of cities doing parts of this well and very few cities doing everything well. So it was all about trying to group them into the kind of themes and areas of responsibility within local governments and regional governments. So we came up with the 5 themes you can see in front of you. So there's bus service electrification, taxi and ride-hailing services, which is really growing now across the globe, city fleets, so that includes local authority and government fleets, shared mobility, again, car clubs, micromobility, things like that, and then the private transport. So we have, like I say, we eventually settled on these 5. It seemed to kind of cover all the groups of vehicles that people were making progress with, but it also split them into, like say, some cities are, in the casebook, are really good at one area and some are really good at a number of areas. So it was able to just categorize them and theme them. So the map here shows there's over 30 cities that are included in the city casebook.
Gary, can
Yes.
I just interrupt you? We still see your very first slide. Is that still correct?
No, sorry, I've been moving on, but is it not moving?
No, unfortunately not.
Hold on a sec. I'll stop sharing and try again. I'm on this one. Oh, wait till I come back. Stop share. It worked well yesterday, but not so well today, unfortunately. Technology.
Take your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, now we see slide 6 up.
Is that the map? Yeah, sorry, so just let me see. Can you see that the map now with the cities?
We see the map. Yeah.
So yeah,
but still not in the presentation mode. It's still on a normal mode. If that's okay, that's fine. Yeah. So you're on slide 6.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why it's not going to presentation mode, but yeah, I'll do it like this anyway. So that's yeah. There you can see the cities across the globe that we've covered. So as you can see, there was a wide amount of different countries, different governments that were included. So yeah, it kind of looked to cover all kinds of governments, all kind of situations that people might find themselves upon. And interesting for me, there's Dundee, where I come from in Scotland, is featured in the casebook, and the work that I did before joining Urban Foresight with Dundee City Council in electrifying the taxi fleet there, where we've got over a quarter of the taxis in Dundee are now electric. And it's really just the story of how we got there, what policies we had to put in place, what incentives we had to put in place. So yeah, each of the cities and each of the case studies kind of go into that. What was the journey to get there? What did we learn? What could we do differently? What was good? So yeah, it's really an interesting read for any city that's looking to electrify. It's like say it's grouped into the theme, so you can find the theme that you're looking to be involved in. So if that's buses, you go to the bus chapter, and then you can read 3 or 4 examples of different cities across the globe and what they're doing really well. So it's really worth a read and really interesting outcomes from that. So next, we looked at the policy side of the document. So that the first part was the casebook, what is happening. The next, we look at the policy guide. So what kind of policies and challenges and things were consistent across all the cities. So the policy part of the document is split into two areas. So the first is the challenges, and this is really trying to group together key challenges that seem to be consistent in all the cities we came across. And I think for me, out of that one, while they're all very interesting, I think what was really becoming clear is the number 5 there, the fact that transport and energy are becoming so closely linked now with electric mobility and hydrogen and everything like that coming, that cities and regions are no longer able to think about transport on its own. They really have to think about how that fits into the wider the wider energy systems and what they're doing in the cities about renewable energy. So yeah, that really came across, that these people that are pushing ahead in this are linking transport and energy systems together. So as you say, there's 5 kind of key challenges we came up with. Then again, we have the top 10 policy recommendations. It's always hard with these documents to kind of come up with the definitive list of recommendations for people, but we managed to get it down to 10 policy recommendations. And for me, I think I'll just talk about 2 or 3 of them that I think are quite important. So I think one of the key ones that we heard about cities that are doing very well is this cross-departmental thinking. So again, thinking energy, transport, environment, air quality, how people will live in the future. So it was really about setting up good governance structures that cover all departments in a government, and that it's not just the fleet team or the transport team that are thinking about electrification on a mass scale. It will encompass all the parts of a government. So yeah, that was really important. I think number 5 is also, for me, very key, is that a city needs to lead by example. I think no city can be telling its citizens or its business community what to do if they're not walking the walk themselves. So again, there's really good examples of cities there where they're electrifying their own fleet at large scale, and just leading by example, so they're able to take that message and take the lessons that they've learned out to the rest of the city. And the kind of final one I like to talk about is sustainable solutions. I think that's very important when we're moving from small scale trials, which usually have funding and some kind of support. How do we move forward where these mass scale adoption of electric vehicles is sustainable? So that's around the business models, that's around the support that comes with that, which is really interesting on cities and the marketplace and what's needed to have a sustainable mass scale adoption of electric vehicles. So yeah, they're the 3 kind of key policy recommendations that I think are very important. And kind of finally, there's the maturity. Final element of the city casebook is the maturity model. Again, this is for mass adoption, so it's not for introducing small scale trials. It's what the cities need to do to get mass scale adoption. So this maturity model allows cities to benchmark their progress in reaching mass adoption, as well as giving them some help with what to do next. So they can look at one of the themes and see how they're getting on in that theme. They can identify where is their weakness. Is it in communication engagement? Is it infrastructure provision? So for each of the themes, they can go through this maturity model and just benchmark where they are, and then, like you say, how they move on. I think the ideal is to get to level 5, which is optimized, where the city is continuously improving. But again, there's kind of, that's a hard to reach, almost impossible to reach, because the day if anybody does ever hit that, it's moved on again. Technology's moved on. So it's about that continual improvement in cities, and the cities that are doing really well in certain areas are always looking ahead, looking to the next step, the next thing that they need to do. And that's really me. That's a quick run through. Like I say, that the City Casebook is available on our website and also the IEA's website, and hopefully we'll get it shared on the marketplace and the website we have for EV4 SCC, so people can read it. I think it's really worth a look. Really interesting to see what cities are doing across the world, and to see what works and what doesn't work, and see the kind of themes that are coming out across the globe that are very consistent, which is quite interesting for us to see that everybody's got the same challenges and same problems. So yeah, that's me. It's really just a quick run through. Like I say, if there's any questions, I can answer them in the chat as well. But yeah, really keen to hear what else is happening in the world today.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for sharing this very exciting and interesting insights. And yes, please, if you have specific questions, don't be shy. Just go ahead and put it on the chat. We'll be happy then to include you here. In the meantime, I have one question, Gary. With all of these development of the book and all the ability to look into these different examples, if you wanted to hint someone to the city of choice, which is the city of choice where you say they have taken it the way you would love to see it happen all over the places, so where should we go and where should we start learning from?
I'm going to be, well, I'll probably have 2 answers to this. My answer is come to Dundee in Scotland, because it's an amazing city and we're doing lots really well in there. And I used to work for the City Council and still work there. So that's really interesting. But so I think some of the Chinese cities have, they've got mass adoption at a huge level. So how they do it, obviously they have a different government structure and different ability to do that. but just to see how it can work and how, you know, I mean, there's cities there that are fully 100% electric buses, 16,000 electric buses on the road. So the cities in China just, they show that it's possible, you know what I mean? I think they show that it's, don't stop pushing and don't try and not reach for the stars, because it's possible. So that would be my two, some of the key Chinese cities, but then Dundee would be my other one.
Okay, the other question is, as we will have Olaf following, talking about Hello and the issue of charging infrastructure, how does that come across when you were looking at your city book? Are these developments going hand in hand, or is there a chicken and egg problem? How did you experience when you look into this, the issue of that most of the electric mobility is still battery based and thus require charging infrastructure, which is different to what fossil fuels have been used to? So any insights on this when you did the casebook?
Yeah, I think so. I think the best cities and the cities that had grown, the key had grown infrastructure and vehicles side by side. So, you know, that I think they're vital, you know what I mean, to get to that mass adoption. You do need that infrastructure, and people need the confidence that the infrastructure is there. So the cities that we saw doing well in a certain area had really well advanced infrastructure for that vehicle type. But like I said, what was very interesting is certain cities had really good infrastructure, maybe for buses or for public transport, but not many cities had a great infrastructure for everything across the board, which is the challenge for all of us, is that buses, cars, micromobility, they all, like you say, need a different type of charger. So that's where it really starts becoming interesting with energy, because that is a lot of energy we need, and how do cities cope with that? So the best cities have got really good infrastructure for the type of vehicles that they have excelled in, but there may be weaker in infrastructure for other ones. And I think that's what was interesting. There was not really many cities who were great at every theme. So yeah, I think that was the key finding for us. But yeah, grow vehicles and infrastructure together is one of the key takeaways. Okay,
thank you. I have one final question to you. Is the Smart City Marketplace had been always very active also in promoting standards, and going in a mass adoption way needs normally standards. Otherwise, it's very difficult to achieve mass adoption. If I ask you, what are the kind of standards you came along when it got to mass adoption, is there anything you would like to hint us to, saying, hey, you really should look at this standard? I think this is the one, or these are the ones that will dominate in the future, or that will make the mass adoption really possible, because that's what we are here all about. It's about market take-up, and market take-up will require mass adoption, and that relates often to standards. So what's your pledge on this?
Yeah, I think that one of the interesting findings that the cities that did really well had very close links with a manufacturer of the vehicles. So unfortunately, that those ones seem to have their standard that worked for them. And again, yeah, the standards are not there. They're coming all the time. Obviously, especially with vehicles, there's been a number of standards over the years. I think they're coming together now, and I think I think they're coming there. But when you look right across the globe, on one side you have America, and then you have China, and then you have Europe in the middle. There's still a disconnect, I think, on an agreement on standards, which is it causes. I think what it causes for cities that are not doing well is confusion, and the lack of confidence to move forward because they don't know which standard to take. So I still, like you say, I think there's an awful lot of work to be done in that, and I think working with the vehicle manufacturers on what do they see in 10 years' time as the solution is very important for us, because they're the ones driving this. You know, the people that make the 30 million electric vehicles that will be on the road are the ones that have to tell us what the standards should be to meet their cars. There's no point in putting chargers or infrastructure on the ground that the cars can't use. So I think that relationships with OEMs and vehicle manufacturers is key, and I think we need to work closer with cities, need to work closer with them to understand where they're going in the future, to understand how to help them get there.
Okay, thanks. It's not a surprise to me, by the way, but it's something that we still have to work on in order, to have the overall mass adoption taking place in large scale, is to find appropriate answers to this. And that's part of our effort here in the Smart City marketplace, is to stimulate or at least to hint over and over again to this topic of standardization. So thanks a lot, Gary, for your insights. So anyone who has further questions, don't hesitate to send any chat note. Haven't seen yet any. I'd be happy to take them on board, even if it's a bit later. So we're going to move on now. And within the EV for SCC, some 3 years ago, a group of people came together. Actually, it was in Eindhoven as one of the physical general assemblies of the, at that time still called European Innovation Partnership on Smart City and Communities. Fabulous, organized by our dear friends from the Netherlands in Eindhoven. And there we heard that the intent of the Commission had been to stimulate activities also in the context of financing instruments, and also to support small and medium-sized enterprises. And so at that time, a group of people came together to try and stimulate an initiative in the larger context of EV for SCC called Hello. And Olaf Bender, who had been the project manager of most of the time of Hello, definitely for the core part of it, will now report the outcome and the lessons learned of the project as one of those examples of what could be stimulated out of the action cluster and out of a particular lead initiative. I'd like to hand over to you, Olaf, and I guess you're going to share your slides with us as well. Olaf, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lutz, for the introduction. Give me a second to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Wait, I'll try it once more. That's, wait 1 second.
Okay, now we can see your screen, and I can see myself in your screen. All right, yeah, these are your slides we can see now.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lutz, for the kind introduction. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present the project Hello here today. Hello, as you might wonder, stands for High Volume Electric Vehicle Procurement. And yeah, I would like to give you a short overview of what we achieved in that project and what we learned in this project. So first of all, I would like to show you an overview of the project. It was an ELENA-funded project. It lasted for 2.5 years, ended in October last year, with the European partners, Clem from France, Good Moves from the Netherlands, UI UK from England, and Urban Mobility Innovations from Germany. We triggered an investment of approximately 22 million euros. Altogether, that was 150 investment projects. That consists of 12 million approximately for charging infrastructure, roughly 1,900 charge points, and 9 million of investment in electric vehicles, which sums up to around 400 electric vehicles, and technology integration, which is basically the telematics used to enable the sharing mobility service that we offered. All that resulted in significant emission reduction shown here. And let me mention one thing. Gary and Lutz asked about the common chicken and egg problem regarding charging infrastructure and vehicles. And we found out in the course of the project, especially in Germany, there is, we experienced something called Reichweitenangst, range anxiety. So quite often there's the anxiety that if you have an electric vehicle, you cannot charge. So we had to, during the course of the project, we had to switch or shift the focus from electric vehicle procurement to procurement of charge points, to lay the foundation to actually have electric vehicles and to kind of eliminate that range anxiety issue. That's just as a comment on what Gary presented. And of course, very important thing, very important issue. This always has to be considered integrated with the energy infrastructure. So as of now, we are at the beginning of mass adoption of the ramp-up phase. So now we do not often experience problems regarding the energy infrastructure, but that definitely is a challenge to come. And in all projects, that has to be taken into account now. I would like to present you a few lighthouse investments that we did within the Hello project, charging infrastructure in Rüsselsheim. So Rüsselsheim in Germany, close to Frankfurt, has by now, or is the most dense charging infrastructure in Germany. There's roughly 900 charge points installed throughout the city. There's some charging farms, so to say, for the Opel plant for the employees there. So that's really is one of the highlights within the project. Another very interesting project, it's called Park and Charge in Oxfordshire, United Kingdom. And in this regard, I would like to mention one really nice opportunity we had in the Hello project was to learn from each other, to learn from the different conditions and requirements that you have in each country or in each region or in each city. The example here in Oxfordshire is there's an old historical building structure, so there's a lack of parking spots, so to say. So due to that, the solution of that is Park and Charge, which combines parking and charging, the ability to reserve parking spots or charging spots for electric vehicles, which, as I said before, enables the actual ramp up. Another very interesting project in the Netherlands is shared vehicles being part of neighborhood management, and that's like the perfect example for smart cities. Let me, from a German perspective, say that our neighbors in the Netherlands are a bit ahead of us. If there is a tender published for new buildings, shared EVs are often already integral part of that tender. So that what we've seen here within the project, that in Utrecht there has been developed new neighborhood, and shared EVs have been already part of that. Another interesting example is electric vehicles, charging stations in the metropolitan area of Paris in France. As I said in the beginning, the project formally ended in October last year, but actually it didn't end then. During the duration of the projects, quite some investments have been triggered and have been prepared. And here you see some examples of future investments that have been triggered by the Hello project. The neighborhood area in Utrecht, which I mentioned, continuation of Park and Charge, and the solutions in Paris will be ramped up as well. Let's come to the lessons learned in the Hello project. As I already mentioned, one very important fact was that we had the great opportunity to learn from each other, to learn from the challenges in the Netherlands, to learn from the challenges in UK, and to adapt the solutions that we've seen there. And that was a really nice example of a European project to speed up the market ramp up. That helped us to, as I've shown, to trigger the investments throughout Europe for electric vehicles. The second point, charging infrastructure, more important than expected. I mentioned that in the beginning, the chicken and egg problem. That as well can be seen in the, let's say, politics in Germany, for example, that the subsidies or the support of the government for charging infrastructure had been enlarged in the last few years, and the focus has been put on that. And as we see now, speaking from a perspective in Germany, that has been the right path. Looking at the numbers of EVs in the last year or in the last 2 years, that which is quite a success. Let me come to the downside of the project, or the challenges we had to face. There was quite some administrative overhead we had to deal with in order to fulfill the requirements, and it has to be mentioned that can be seen of a challenge. Apart from that, the criteria regarding the bank guarantees needed for the project were not really suitable for SMEs, so that caused quite some challenges as well. And the project structure itself, from the very beginning, had been intended for consortia, and but actually the contract structure needed one single partner, one single beneficiary, and that caused some additional administrative overhead as well. Let me now give you an impression of the results that we as a company achieved within the Hello project. The Hello project helped us to refine our product portfolio in the mobility sector, which is called here M2Life, Mobilität zum Leben, Mobility for Life, and especially our two products, M2 Charge and M2 Share, which I will talk about later, improved greatly within the duration of the project, and that, as I said, gave us the chance to put the learnings that we had, put them literally on the road. M2 Charge enables functionality, charge at work, charge at home, and of course roaming. You can easily separate private trips and business trips. Smart charging is enabled. That of course depends on standards as well. Very important topic. Without OCPP, the relevant standards, you cannot implement that. And another interesting point is other mobility solutions. and to share, as I said, charging and sharing combined, then it's a one-stop shop, if you want to put it this way. The connection to cities, of course, if a city wants to build up, ramp up charging infrastructure, they do need all the insights of what is actually happening, what's the usage, where is charging stations needed, and what's the utilization, where can it be combined with, for example, public transport. So that's features that we have implemented here. I already mentioned smart charging. Here on the picture on the left, you see how renewable energy resources can be integrated into the system to optimize, for example, consumption of the energy generated. You could integrate the energy management system of the facility where the charge poles are installed. You could integrate batteries and so on and so forth. On the upper right, you see the cockpit dashboard to really have advanced analytics on how the charge points are used, to give you insights on how to further ramp up or further build up the charging infrastructure. Of course, you have a user app to enable all that, and definitely, furthermore, it is compatible with a high number of the OCPP chargers, EV chargers on the market. M2Share, which is our product on sharing, supports several use cases. It can be EV sharing in a business context, which enables the usage of EVs for business trips, but let's say on the weekend or after the business day, employees can use the cars for private purpose, and you could use it as well, the system, to enable trips between two locations. Let's say the central city office and an airport, or two separate offices, or two separate locations of company. Of course, we have to enable multimodal sharing, e-pedelecs, e-scooters, e-bikes, and public transport to really enable the broad picture and to have a holistic approach. Mobility stations integrated to use public transport, that's getting more and more important to really have that solution flying. And the last point, which is of great importance, it helps to shift from personally assigned cars basically to a system with integrated sharing solutions. So that's the technology. It's not a technological challenge. It's more or less a challenge of mindset. Still, many companies, many employees have their personal dedicated vehicle, and but that's in many cases that's no longer necessary, and we can enable here a system that allows sharing and to reduce the number of cars. On the right hand, you see the components that are within the solution. We enable that with a digital service platform of Continental, a user app, of course, booking and keyless access via app, advanced analytics, billing, business and private trips, and manufacturer neutral sourcing of vehicles. That's a lesson we came along in the Hello project as well. For example, if you talking to a city where there's a huge manufacturing site of an OEM, you can't sell them cars from a different manufacturer. That's they will send you away immediately. They need, of course, the cars from the manufacturer that's located there. And all in all, we are offering a turnkey mobility package, including all services And as I said, that all that has been supported by the Hello project. So I hope I could give you a good view on the project, and I'm looking forward to your questions, either now or feel free to contact me via email after this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olaf. There is a question from Wahid in the chat. Did Elena provide that funding for the implementation? Because from my understanding, it provides technical assistance. Could you explain the Elena program in a few words? So for those of the colleagues who are not familiar with the Elena program.
Yes, of course. The Elena program does not fund the actual implementation. It is, as you are writing or as you are stating in your question, it provides funding for the technical assistance. So the actual procurement of the vehicles or of the charge poles, of the technical infrastructure, that is not funded by the Elena program.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, as Olaf offered, you can still put something in the chat or reach out to him. And I think it's a good example of how we, as a group, were able to leverage the EV for SCC initiative of urban foresight and the tools, the financing tools shared and provided by the Smart City Marketplace to stimulate activities. And we would like to see more of this kind and exchange the ideas and outcome of that. Let me come back to the next, which is then to start with the last point of today, which is the topic around where do we heading from here. And we will talk about the new initiative towards a European mobility data space in GAIA-X. And I need to find out why the sharing doesn't take place as it should. Okay, here we go. Now it takes place. And what I'm going to report is the idea developed in preparation of the matchmaking event. And Anna helped me together with Judith to develop that fact sheet that we published back in April with very positive feedback. Now, what is the idea? The idea is that the urban mobility space is largely dominated by the question of how to use data from different sources to provide better mobility services and to do a better urban mobility planning. At the same time, we see the topic of sovereignty of data and the ownership of data becoming a very important question in the smart city context. And not only there, it's also a topic abroad and across all sectors. And there had been an initiative launched some time ago by the German government named GAIA-X, which has been taken on now on European level. And the GAIA-X ASBL has been formed. A number of organizations and entities have joined, and an international management team from different member states have been recently appointed. So it's all ready to rumble, so to say. And the idea of the LEAD initiative is we find a connectivity, a connection between the Smart City Marketplace Action Cluster, Sustainable Urban Mobility, and GAIA-X to eventually jointly work on this topic of urban mobility data. And that's what this is all about. The context is the digitalization and the fact that more and more data is available. The point is that this data should be accessible by the cities and communities in order to, for example, do better planning in the context of the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, which we all are supporting, as you know, for those of you who have been with us for quite a while. Looking at the reality, it shows to us that very often cities do not have access to these kind of data. And there are all kinds of reasons to it. And one of the dominant aspect to it is not so much of distrust to the cities and communities, and much more the question about could this data, once it's being shared with the cities and communities, being used by others for competing services, and thus putting myself as a transport operator maybe in a competition much harder than expected. And so how do we overcome these concerns without neglecting their arguments and reasons? And the idea taken from GAIA-X is to provide secure data spaces in which all of this sharing could be done in a safe and transparent manner, taking into consideration the reasons by the transport operators why they don't want to share that openly, but still enabling cities and communities for having a transparent view of the mobility offerings, the mobility services, the ability of the transport operators, and trying to match that against the demand that cities and citizens have. What is GAIA-X? I already mentioned. It's an international activity you can look up in the internet, and it is in preparation or in progress. If you look up their webpage, you could see that mobility has been up there as an area of interest. There are first use cases being defined. You will also see that there is a domain called Smart City and use cases for Smart City set up. And our intent is to reach out to these domains in GAIA-X and invite them to collaborate with the Smart City Marketplace Action Cluster by making a very decent and concrete approach by a potential proposal. What's the current status? As I said, they are they have passed the time of inauguration, but they are building up capacity as we speak. In Germany, there is a German GAIA-X hub, which has launched the domain Smart City recently, a few weeks ago. There has been a formal board assigned of 4 people under the leadership of the city of Hamburg to manage that domain. And the first use cases are under consideration. And so the idea that we have is we use EMOB DS, so the European Urban Mobility Data Space, to create a holistic view on ideally all of the trips, so 100% of all trips in a given city and region. And that's a topic which is quite challenging, is if we look into what kind of data is typically available to cities and communities, we may find data around public transport. We may find some data here and there about cycling, but most of the data, or the rest of the data, let's say it this way, is often not available or not being collected, and therefore it is all based on very anecdotal analysis in any given city. So how can we improve that collectively, and how can we make business services out of that in a safe and secure manner, protecting the sovereignty of cities when it gets to the urban mobility planning? What will be the benefits for the mobility users? Obviously, with a better understanding of what's going on, and in a data-driven environment, we, the cities and communities, will be able to better understand how they should respond to the mobility needs of the citizens and the ability to respond to that given the various transport operators in the city. This could lead to, for example, more mobility hubs, as they have been very popular being analyzed in our lighthouse projects on smart city and communities, and where in some of the cities they have created great success, and others they worked out only so and so. So having a better understanding of what are the real needs and what should a hub offer, and which level of service should be provided, could be a very important topic. Just taking the example that Olaf reported about Oxfordshire, where the ability to charge at street will be largely impossible because of the way the neighborhoods are being designed and constructed, and the intent of the city to reuse instead parking spots which are nearby, and using them in after work hours time for charging, is an example of where you could think, okay, how do I now support as a city the citizens who have put their cars up there? How do they get back on the last mile? Is it close enough in walking distance? Do I need to offer a bike service or public transport spot? And all of a sudden, the parking charge is developing much more towards a mobility hub question. And what kind of data do I have at hand? This is just one example of probably many that you all can refer to. And so that is the idea, that we are looking for how could data spaces being created within the cities, but also equally in a European, pan-European way, so that we also could learn from other cities the same way. Also important, back to Amalia and our friends from DG Move, and not only there, is the question of, are the regulatory frameworks good enough to support this concept and these ideas? There are a number of directives out there we can have a look at, and should also feed back to our fellows in the Commission if and how they are sufficient. And that is being part of the lead initiative to think about whether we should go and look deeper into these directives and trying to map them onto the demands to see how that could fit together. This will all come together in the context of this GAIA-X idea. Why? Because we believe that GAIA-X will have a dominant role in the near foreseeable future when it gets to developing appropriate business models. It'll be an early stage, but that's good for starting such a lead initiative. So we're not late. We're early on with the others and could work together and collectively on this topic. You can see here a number of references to find out more data. And of course, one of the questions to raise is, what is an appropriate business model for such a European urban mobility data space? Now, the idea is to have this lead initiative complemented by a lighthouse project, very much as we did in the past with the SCC lighthouse projects. And so there are upcoming work programs that we're looking for, and especially in the work program of Digital Europe, we think we could identify funding opportunities that could complement such a lead initiative by a dedicated consortium-based project. Of course, such a consortium has to be formed first. It has to develop a proper project proposal and submit it, and they have to be lucky to win. So this is not for sure and a given, but it will help as they structure the work around this project proposal to also feed back into the lead initiative and help shaping the lead initiative. So we're very excited that at the matchmaking event, there were a number of people instantly interested in adopting this idea and going forward. So we're in preparation now of the inauguration of such a consortium, which is probably to be happen this month. And we are calling out today here to you to consider this new elite initiative and asking yourself if you want to participate. It has not been graved in stone what we're intending to do. It will be to collectively developed over time. In Germany, the activities have been ongoing for a while. There are some ideas, some sketches that will be shared and could be part of such an EU-wide initiative, but it's actually at the very beginning. And that's why we wanted to make sure that you have been informed about it and have the ability to participate. That's the idea around the new lead initiative on an European urban data space, urban mobility data space. Any questions from your side? Any comments, volunteers? There's one from André. I'm running 2 courses next semester on design thinking and system design. I would be interested to explore design projects where my students would be working on projects which you may propose. If you are interested to propose an urban mobility project, please contact me. Okay, thank you, André, for this information. And I think everybody has an ability to read the chat and reach out to you. And looking forward to see if we could connect to your project. Design thinking and system design, especially in this context around GAIA-X, is an important element, of course. Although certain cornerstones are set by the GAIA-X consortium and ASBL, there's a lot of room to really make the system design happen, as it will be for a potential European urban mobility data space. Are there any questions from your side? Okay, Christian, thank you. In order to express interest in participating in this initiative, should we contact you directly? That's certainly an ability to do. Put my credentials in the email, in the chat, sorry. You can reach out to all of us in charge. Could be Anna, could be me. The 2 people that will work on the consortia work are Olaf Bender, whom you got known with presenting hello, and Gadi Lenz, who is also here in the call. Gadi, you may just briefly voice yourself and introduce you for a minute, if you're still here. No, it seems he dropped out, probably. Can't find him yet. He was in a minute ago. Okay, we have another question from Olga. If your question could not be answered due to timing, please send it. Okay. That was Olga from the organizer. Yeah, that was the email address at the beginning of the slide deck. And thank you, Olga, for mentioning it. Are there any other comments, questions to this idea? We welcome your valuable feedback on this, as it's an early stage. We all believe that there is a lot of room for creative ideas and recommendations. I could see that there are some 18 participants next to our fellow colleagues organizing it. Andre, you can also voice. If you wanted to turn on your mic, if you could, I'd be happy if you express yourself. Otherwise, I can read what you just wrote. Okay, let me try. I personally, so Andre wrote, I personally interested in exploring social and behavioral aspects with respect to mobility and sharing from a user and other stakeholders' perspective. Certainly a topic, Andre, that could be addressed in this context. The question is, if we have an ability to use or to build up such a data space, what are we going to do with the data? And a very important element to it is how these different modes of transport can be well integrated and connected, like the intermodal mobility journey. And that's a very important social and behavioral aspect, is how much am I locked into, which many of the transport operators do today. So you do have a chance by some of them to do an intermodal journey, but you're very much bound to what they could offer to you, which are typically predefined relationships with other transport operators, while you as a user may have your own preferences and would love to see your own preferences being covered very well. So that's certainly a topic which is of high interest. There had been a preliminary work on this in Germany in 2019, which was called ProSemo, Proactive Seamless Mobility. And there the aspect of social and behavioral aspect in the context of intermodal transport was addressed. So that's something that could be explored in this context, presumably. So feel free to voice your interest. There was a question from Jose. Can you elaborate on the project proposal timeline? Unfortunately, not yet, because the work programs are not yet out. Everything of that is premature, but it's intended to work on this project starting soon as a pre-preparation or preparing preparational phase to prepare for the calls to come from the info sessions that have been conducted. There is a likelihood that out of the Digital Europe program, there could be an adequate call for this, but it has not been finally determined. I see Hans Martin joining. Hi, Hans Martin. the question you have. Again, Anna mentioned you could unmute yourself and also voice. I don't have to read all of yours, but I'll be happy to do so. So do you want to focus exclusively on, I guess, data sets that should be open according to regulation, or do you also want to consider data sets from industrial applications? Okay, Hans, I can see you. So
hello.
Go ahead and express.
Well, I can just explain what the background is. Colleagues of mine have been working a lot with mobile phone data, though. And this is unfortunately not open, and it's sometimes very expensive. So I'm just wondering if this is something you might want to consider in your proposal, or at least it could be investigated, or if this is out of scope, just for better understanding.
Yeah, thank you, Hans-Martin. Certainly, we have to think about also non-open data. That's why we want to have this safe and secure data space philosophy taken on, because one of the issues that many projects have faced, also in the smart city, in the SCC01 context, was that transport operators were not willing to share openly, although they may have been willing to share privately in a given context if they know who is going to use the data for which purpose and how it can be secured that it's not being misused in a different way. So that is one among the key aspects that we would love to see being discussed in that, Hans-Martin.
Okay, thank you.
We have Andre. Okay, he has to move on to a different session. Thank you. Are there any other questions, topics, comments from your side on this?
I would like to give a quick remark on the question of Hans-Martin. Just another example of, let's say, open or not open data. The example is car manufacturers, for example, start implementing environmental sensors in their vehicles. And this data generated is typically not open, or they have a certain intention to whom this data should be available. And the GAIA-X structure enables to share or provide this data to the parties that are intended to have that data. That is just another example besides the mobile phone data you mentioned.
Thank you, Olaf. Good example. Further questions from your side, comments, ideas about what we should add and what we should take care of? Okay. So I hope that you will find this information useful. We will make that, of course, available. Maybe Anna, could you just share what will happen with the material that has been presented today? Will that be made available at the marketplace? Could you just elaborate a bit on this?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also the recording, but it's mainly Judith. She's in charge of this aspect. I have also, so we will upload everything on the website. I have just heard from Espen. So, and I've also taken notes. So after circulating them and agreeing them with you and Judith, then we can send them around to all the members of the action clusters.
Okay.
They're already looking very good. So as soon as I have your agreement on them, they can receive the notes. And I've also included a lot of links there that have been circulated in the chat. So I've tried to include everything for the information to stay there.
Good. I asked Gary and Olaf just to make sure that if you could make your presentations available to Anna so that she can include that, would be highly appreciated. All right, good. So it has been a long day for many of us here in the Smart City Marketplace. We still have a few minutes to go, but I would like to ask, are there any closing remarks from the others? Maybe Amalia, could I ask, as a representative of DG Move and therefore the European Commission, which is in charge of the Smart City Marketplace, is there anything out of today that you would like to comment on before we're getting to the closing session?
The concepts Georg yesterday highlighted that I think it has been very important is co-creation and inspiration. I think both are the keys to take into account. And of course, the cooperation that the Smart Cities Marketplace is a very good example. Just that.
Okay, thank you, Amalia. Good. Judith, are you back? I see her at least listed, but I'm not quite sure whether she's already back. You're back. Okay. Hopefully, and you're laughing, so it looks good. Okay.
Yeah, we were just done with integrated planning, policy and regulation action clusters. So I wanted to come back to this session. So it seems to me you have done a lot, and also a lot of people still there. So this is very good.
Okay. Anything from your side you wanted to mention at the far end about how we're going to progress from here in general with the Smart City Marketplace before I'm starting with my closing remarks?
Now some practical things, but Anna also can add to that, of course, that we will have the recordings will be published together with the minutes, because we have the recordings, we don't make very elaborate minutes, so it will be a summary of the discussion that Anna has been so kind to take on her.
Thanks, Judith. So then back to the audience. Are there any final remarks from your side that you like to provide to us? Any feedback on the session? We got some feedback in the chat. If you have some more feedback, please feel free to add that. It'll help us to manage and organize these kind of events. But I hope, honestly, that next time we can see each other in person somewhere, because the pandemic will allow us to come together again. We'll be vaccinated and everything should somewhat come back to normal, hopefully. So please feel free to add that. Therefore, let me come to the closing remarks of today. I appreciate and join in with what Judith said, that we're very happy to have you with us today. We're very happy to see that you stayed with us, even in this very difficult setup, although we all are being trained now for the last 15 months on how to do that. So thanks a lot to all of you joining in today at the Action Cluster meeting of the Action Cluster Sustainable Urban Mobility. I'd like to thank Judith and Anna for their insights about the Smart City Marketplace, and thanks to Amalia, who hopped on short notice to give us some insights on DG Move and what's going on. We also like to thank Gary and Olaf for their insights on activities in EV for SCC, which hopefully gave you the impression that such a lead initiative could make a difference if we manage it carefully and rightfully. So very happy to see these outcomes being reported in the session today. And yes, we're ready to rumble for the next wave to come. I showed you the plan for 2021, 2022. We're looking forward to new lead initiatives, and we have presented to you today the first of this, called the European urban mobility data space initiative in the larger context of GAIA-X, and to connect this very important initiative with our very important initiative, eventually also through another important initiative, Digital Europe. So it all comes together very nicely. We're happy to get more of these proposals on lead initiatives coming from you. Don't be shy, just send us your proposal, and we are very happy to consider that. And if you want to join in and haven't made up your mind, but will do afterwards, feel free to contact us. It's all in the chat, and also on the marketplace you will find our contact details. And from there, I would say special thanks to Anna for making the minutes. It's always a pleasure, and looking forward to that. Thanks to Olga for organizing, and Espen for all of the links coming in. So I hope I didn't miss anyone who helped us. There's a lot of people in the back that are helpful to make this all happen. I wish you all an enjoyable rest of the afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the 2 days on the Smart City Marketplace Forum, and looking forward to seeing you sometime somewhere. Stay healthy and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much, and that's the end of today. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Lutz.
Thanks, Judith.